A billionaire sat alone in a restaurant full of millionaires. Crystal chandeliers cast soft golden light across white linen tablecloths. Champagne glasses clinked in celebration of deals worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. And in the corner booth overlooking the Atlantic Ocean sat Marcus Whitfield, a man who commanded empires, a man who bent markets to his will, a man who tonight watched his entire world crumble with a forward text message. "I cannot do this." That was all she wrote. No explanation, no apology, no signature. Just 4 words that shattered 2 years of his life into pieces so small he could not even begin to pick them up. Have you ever been in a room full of people and felt completely invisible? Have you ever planned the perfect moment only for life to destroy it without warning? Have you ever believed someone was your forever only to discover you were nothing more than a convenience? If you have, then you already understand the pain Marcus Whitfield felt in that moment. But here is the thing about rock bottom. Sometimes it is not the end of your story. Sometimes it is the beginning of everything you were actually searching for. What if I told you that the worst night of his life was actually the setup for the greatest love he would ever know? What if I told you that the woman who would change his destiny was someone the world had trained him to overlook? What if I told you that a simple act of kindness from a waitress would turn into a love story that would silence every critic and prove that miracles still happen? Stay with me, because this story will change how you see love, rejection, and the unexpected moments that define our lives. Let me take you back to where it all began. Marcus Whitfield was not born into wealth. He grew up in a small town in rural Georgia that most maps forgot to include. His father worked double shifts at a factory that eventually closed. His mother cleaned houses for families who never bothered to learn her name. They had nothing but each other and a stubborn belief that hard work could change everything. Marcus carried that belief like a torch through every obstacle life threw at him. He worked 3 jobs to put himself through college. He slept in his car for 6 months while building his first company. He heard the word no so many times it stopped meaning anything to him. And by the time he turned 40, he had built a global shipping empire that stretched across 47 countries. Forbes called him a genius. Wall Street called him untouchable. The world called him a billionaire. But Marcus knew something the world did not. Success had made him rich, but it had also made him lonely. Every person who entered his life seemed to want something. Business partners wanted deals. Friends wanted favors. Women wanted access to his lifestyle. He could not remember the last time someone asked how he was doing and actually waited for an honest answer. Trust had become a foreign concept. Connection felt like a distant memory. And love. Love felt like something that happened to other people. People who had not built walls as high as his. But then Victoria Ashford walked into his life. She was elegant, sophisticated, the daughter of old money who moved through high society like she was born for it. She laughed at his jokes. She listened to his stories. She made him feel like maybe, just maybe, he did not have to be alone. 2 years they spent together. 2 years of galas and getaways and whispered promises. 2 years of Marcus slowly letting his guard down. And tonight was supposed to be the night everything changed. The rooftop restaurant gleamed under Miami's velvet sky. Stars scattered like diamonds above the Atlantic. The private table had been arranged to perfection. Roses imported from Ecuador because she once mentioned they were her favorite. Her preferred champagne chilling in a silver bucket. Candles flickering softly in the ocean breeze. And in Marcus's jacket pocket sat a ring, a custom 7-carat diamond set in platinum. He had spent 3 months designing it. Every facet chosen with care, every detail meant to show her how much she meant to him. Tonight, he would ask her to be his wife. Tonight, he would finally have the one thing his money could never buy: a partner, a family, a future that meant something beyond quarterly reports and stock prices. He arrived 15 minutes early. He wanted everything to be perfect when she walked in. He imagined her face when she saw the table. He imagined her tears when he got down on one knee. He imagined her voice saying yes. But 15 minutes passed. Then 30. Then 45. And the chair across from him remained empty. If you have ever believed someone was your forever, only to discover you were wrong, stay with me. Because what happens next will shock you. Hit that like button right now if you understand the pain of waiting for someone who never shows up. Marcus checked his phone for the 100th time. No missed calls. No text messages. No explanation for why the woman he loved was nearly an hour late to the most important dinner of their relationship. He made excuses in his mind. Maybe traffic was bad. Maybe her phone died. Maybe something came up at the last minute. But somewhere deep inside, he already knew the truth. He just was not ready to face it yet. Around him, the whispers had already begun. This restaurant catered to Miami's elite. Everyone here knew everyone, and everyone here recognized Marcus Whitfield sitting alone at a table meant for two. I can hear hushed voices behind champagne glasses. Is that not Whitfield? Did his date just stand him up? I heard she was only with him for the lifestyle anyway. Imagine being that rich and still getting rejected. The words floated through the air like poison. Marcus kept his expression neutral. Years of boardroom battles had taught him how to wear a mask, how to hide what he was really feeling behind a wall of composure. But inside, something was cracking. The loneliness he had buried for years was clawing its way to the surface. The fear that he would never be enough for anyone was screaming louder than ever. He was a man who controlled billion-dollar companies, but in this moment, he had absolutely no control. Then his phone finally buzzed. His heart leaped. Maybe she was calling to explain. Maybe there was a reasonable excuse. Maybe everything would still be okay. He looked at the screen. It was not a call. It was a text message. 4 words that would haunt him for months. I cannot do this. No apology. No explanation. No signature. Just silence, dressed as closure. He stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then, almost as if fate wanted to twist the knife deeper, he saw a notification. Victoria had posted on social media. His hands trembled slightly as he opened the app. There she was, smiling, laughing, on a yacht in Ibiza, with another man's arm wrapped around her waist. The photo was time-stamped 3 hours ago. She was never coming. She was never planning to come. While he sat here with a ring in his pocket and hope in his heart, she was already living her next chapter. A chapter that did not include him. 2 years. 2 years of his life meant nothing. He was not her partner. He was her placeholder. A lifestyle upgrade she enjoyed until something better came along. Marcus placed his phone face down on the table. The roses suddenly looked ridiculous. The champagne felt like a cruel joke. The ring in his pocket weighed 1,000 pounds. He had built empires from nothing. He had negotiated deals worth billions. He had faced down competitors who wanted to destroy him. But none of that prepared him for this moment. The moment he realized that despite everything he had accomplished, he was still disposable. Still not enough. Still alone. He reached for his water glass. His hands steady on the outside, trembling somewhere deep within. And that is when he heard her voice. Good evening, sir. My name is Zara. I will be taking care of your table tonight. Marcus looked up slowly. Standing before him was a young black woman in a crisp white blouse and fitted black apron. Her braids were pulled back neatly. Her posture was professional, but not stiff. And her eyes held something he had not seen in a long time. Warmth. Genuine warmth that did not seem to want anything from him. Her name tag read, Zara Jenkins. She was not looking at him like he was a billionaire. She was not looking at him like he was a headline. She was looking at him like he was a person. And in that moment, that simple acknowledgement meant more than she could possibly know. Marcus forced a polite nod. I think I will be dining alone tonight. The words came out heavier than he intended. Zara glanced at the table. She noticed everything. The roses starting to wilt. The champagne growing warm in its bucket. The empty chair that told a story she did not need words to understand. The flickering candles that had been lit for a celebration that would never happen. She did not pry. She did not offer empty sympathies. She did not look at him with pity. Instead, she said something unexpected. That is perfectly fine, sir. But the chef prepared something special for your table tonight. A 7-course tasting menu. She paused. Would you like to enjoy it anyway, or would you prefer something simpler? Marcus almost laughed, not out of cruelty, but out of genuine surprise. Every other server in this restaurant would have seen a billionaire and pushed the most expensive options. Every other person would have tried to maximize the opportunity, but this woman was giving him permission to be human. She was acknowledging without words that maybe he did not need extravagance right now. Maybe he just needed something real, something simpler, he said. Zara smiled softly. I will bring you our best. Trust me. She turned and walked toward the kitchen. And for reasons he could not explain, Marcus found himself watching her go. There was something different about her, something he could not quite name. 20 minutes later, Zara returned. But she was not carrying anything from the menu. She placed a plate in front of him that looked nothing like the architectural masterpieces this restaurant was known for. It was a beautifully seared fish, roasted vegetables glistening with herbs, a small dessert that smelled like cinnamon and honey. Simple, unpretentious, and somehow exactly what he did not know he needed. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "What is this?" Zara hesitated for just a moment. "My mother's recipe," she admitted quietly. "The chef is my uncle. I asked him to make it just for you." Marcus paused. "Why would you do that?" She shrugged softly. "Because expensive does not always mean comforting. And you looked like you could use something real tonight." For a long moment, Marcus did not respond. He just looked at her. This woman who had no idea who he was or how much he was worth. This woman who saw a stranger having a hard night and decided to offer kindness instead of service. This woman who brought him her mother's recipe because she thought it might help. When was the last time someone had done something for him without expecting anything in return? He could not remember. Slowly he picked up his fork, and with the first bite something inside him softened. It was not just the food. It was everything the food represented. Care, intention, humanity. "This is extraordinary," he said honestly. And he meant it. Zara beamed. "I will tell my mother. She always says good food heals everything." Marcus looked at her again. Really looked. "Do you believe that?" She considered the question. "I believe kindness heals everything. Food is just the messenger." Marcus leaned back in his chair. For the first time that night he exhaled. The tension in his shoulders released just slightly. The noise of the restaurant faded into the background, and he made a decision that would change everything. "Sit with me," he said suddenly. Zara blinked. "Excuse me, sir, just for a few minutes. I am not ready to leave yet. And I do not want to sit with my own thoughts." She glanced nervously toward the bar where her manager was monitoring the floor. "I could lose my job." "Then tell them you were attending to a demanding guest," Marcus replied. She laughed softly. "Are you demanding, sir?" "Not tonight." Something in his voice made her believe him. Something in his eyes told her this was not a man trying to take advantage. This was a man who was drowning, and she was the only lifeline in sight. Against every rule she had been taught, against every instinct that told her to stay professional, Zara sat down, and the world around them faded. Can two people from completely different worlds truly understand each other? If you are wondering where this connection leads, you will not want to miss what happens next. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever met someone who understood you instantly? They talked about things that did not belong in a restaurant built for billionaires. She told him about her dream of becoming a marine biologist, about her fascination with the ocean since she was a little girl, about how she used to sneak books from the library about coral reefs and whale migration patterns, about how she wanted to protect the creatures that could not protect themselves. "Why marine biology?" Marcus asked. Zara's eyes lit up. "Because the ocean does not care who you are," she said. "It does not care about your background or your bank account or the color of your skin. It just exists, powerful and beautiful and completely indifferent to human judgment. There is something freeing about that." Marcus nodded slowly. He understood exactly what she meant. She continued, "I have been working 3 jobs to finish my degree. Waitressing here, tutoring kids in the afternoon, cleaning offices on weekends. Every grant application I have submitted has been rejected. Why?" She laughed bitterly. "Because I do not have the right connections, the right last name, the right pedigree. My research is solid. My professors say it is some of the best they have seen. But that does not matter when you are competing against people whose parents donated buildings to the university." Marcus felt something stir in his chest. He knew that feeling. He had lived that feeling. "What about you?" she asked. "You look like you have it all figured out." Marcus shook his head. "I grew up in a town nobody has ever heard of. My father worked himself to death in a factory. My mother cleaned houses for people who never bothered to learn her name. Everything I have I built from nothing." Zara studied him. "Do you not feel proud of that?" Marcus considered the question. "I built it thinking it would be enough. And now I realize I forgot to build the things that actually matter." "Like what?" He looked at her. "Like knowing someone cares about me. Not what I can give them, but who I am." Silence fell between them. Not awkward, not heavy, just honest. Two strangers from opposite ends of the universe finding common ground in the most unexpected place. She did not see a billionaire. He did not see a waitress. They saw each other, and sometimes that is all it takes. Then footsteps broke the moment. Heavy, angry, approaching fast. "Zara, what the hell do you think you are doing?" The floor manager stormed toward them. His face was red with fury. His voice carried across the terrace, drawing the attention of nearby guests. Zara jumped to her feet. Her heart was pounding. "I am so sorry, Mr. Davis." She knew the rules. Staff never sit with guests. It did not matter that the restaurant was winding down. It did not matter that she was on her break. Rules were rules. And she had just broken the biggest one. "You know the policy," the manager barked. "This is grounds for immediate termination." He turned to Marcus with a practiced apologetic expression. "Sir, I am deeply sorry for this. She will be dealt with immediately. This kind of behavior is completely unacceptable, and I assure you." But Marcus did not let him finish. He stood slowly, deliberately. When he spoke, his voice was calm, but it carried the weight of a man who had commanded boardrooms and broken competitors without raising his voice. "This woman saved my evening." The manager's mouth opened and closed. "Sir, she showed more hospitality in 5 minutes than your entire establishment has managed all night." The manager's face went pale. He was starting to realize he might have miscalculated. "Sir, do you know who—" Marcus stepped closer. "Do you know who I am?" The color drained completely from the manager's face. "Mr. Whitfield, I had no idea. I did not realize. Please accept my deepest apologies." Marcus held up a hand. "I am not the one you should be apologizing to." The manager turned to Zara. His voice had changed completely. "Zara, I am so sorry. I did not mean. Please forget everything I said." But Marcus was not finished. "Let me be very clear about something. If this woman loses her job tonight, I will buy this restaurant tomorrow morning just to rehire her. And then I will have a very detailed conversation with your corporate office about customer service standards. Do we understand each other?" The manager nodded frantically. "Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. She will not be punished, sir." "Good." Marcus turned back to Zara. Her hands were trembling. Her eyes were wide with shock. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. "Come to this address Monday morning, 9 a.m. Zara stared at the card. "I do not understand." He pressed it gently into her palm. "You told me kindness heals everything. Let me show you what happens when someone actually believes that." He held her gaze for a long moment. Then, without another word, he walked away. The manager scurried after him, offering apologies and complimentary desserts that went ignored. And Zara stood there, alone, holding a business card like it contained a secret too fragile to speak aloud. She did not know what Monday would bring. She did not know if she should even show up. But something had shifted. Something she could not name. The night that should have destroyed her might have just changed everything. Monday morning arrived faster than Zara expected. She stood outside a sleek glass building in downtown Miami. The address on the card. She had almost convinced herself not to come. She had spent the entire weekend replaying that night in her mind, wondering if it was real, wondering if she had imagined the whole thing, wondering if this was some kind of elaborate joke. But something made her show up anyway. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was a small voice inside her that whispered, "What if?" She walked through the revolving doors into a lobby that looked like something from a magazine. Marble floors, living walls covered in tropical plants, a massive aquarium spanning an entire wall, and a reception desk where a woman with a perfect smile asked if she had an appointment. "I am here to see." She looked at the card. "I actually do not know who I am here to see. I was just given this address." The receptionist studied her for a moment. Then recognition flickered in her eyes. "You must be Zara. Mr. Whitfield is expecting you. 32nd floor." Zara's heart hammered as the elevator climbed. 32nd floor. Mr. Whitfield. She finally put the pieces together. The man from the restaurant. The billionaire everyone whispered about. The one who had defended her when no one else would. The doors opened to a space that took her breath away. It was not an office. It was the headquarters of the Whitfield Ocean Conservation Foundation. The walls were covered with images of marine life, whales breaching, coral reefs teeming with color, research vessels cutting through crystal blue waters, scientists in wet suits tagging sea turtles. Everything she had ever dreamed of working on was represented in this single space. and standing in the conference room waiting for her was Marcus. He looked different in daylight, less broken, more composed, but his eyes still held that same warmth from the restaurant. "You came," he said. She nodded. "I almost did not." "But you did." She looked around the room. "What is this place?" Marcus gestured for her to sit. "This is my foundation. We fund marine conservation research around the world. Coral reef preservation, endangered species protection, ocean cleanup initiatives." Zara's breath caught. "This is incredible." "It is, but that is not why I asked you here." She waited. "You want to save the ocean," he said simply. "I happen to have the resources to help." Zara shook her head. "Sir, I barely know you." "You do not need to." He leaned forward. "I made some calls this weekend. I had my team pull your academic records, your research proposals, your grant applications." She felt exposed. "How did you?" "I have resources," Marcus replied, "and I used them to understand who I was dealing with." He paused. "What I found was remarkable. Your thesis on coral bleaching reversal was rejected by 12 institutions. Not because it was not brilliant, it was, but because you did not have the right name, the right connections, the right background." Zara's eyes burned. She had spent 2 years applying for grants, 2 years being told no, 2 years watching less qualified candidates get opportunities she deserved because their parents knew the right people. "You understand that feeling?" she asked quietly. Marcus nodded. "Better than you know." He slid a folder across the table. "Open it." Her hands trembled as she lifted the cover. Inside was a letter of acceptance, a full scholarship to the marine biology program at the University of Miami, one of the top programs in the country. Behind it was an internship offer, a paid research position at the Whitfield Foundation, full benefits, full support. Behind that was a funding proposal, seed money for her first independent research project, $50,000 to start, more available upon demonstrated progress. And at the very back was a document she did not understand at first. Then she saw her mother's name, her father's name, a medical debt clearance statement, every outstanding bill her family owed, paid in full. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. "Why?" Her voice cracked. "Why would you do this for me?" Marcus leaned back. His expression was soft but serious. "Because the night everyone saw my failure, you saw me. When the whole restaurant was laughing at the lonely billionaire who got stood up, you brought me your mother's recipe. You sat with me when it could have cost you everything. You treated me like a human being." He paused. "And because people like you should not have to fight alone." Zara wiped her tears. "I do not know how to repay you." "You do not repay kindness," Marcus said gently. "You pass it forward." She looked at him for a long moment. This man who had every reason to be bitter about the world, this man who had just been publicly humiliated and abandoned, this man who, instead of retreating into his wealth, had reached out to lift up a stranger. She saw him differently now, not as a billionaire, not as a headline, but as a human being who understood what it meant to struggle, and who remembered what it felt like to need someone to believe in you. "Thank you," she whispered. It was all she could manage, but it was enough. When two people from different worlds start building something together, can they deny what is growing between them? Drop a heart in the comments if you believe love can cross any boundary. And make sure you are subscribed because this story is just getting started. The months that followed changed both of them in ways neither expected. Zara dove into her studies with a fire she had almost lost. Her professors were stunned by her brilliance. The same institutions that had rejected her were now asking her to speak at their conferences. She led research expeditions into the Atlantic. She published papers in journals she used to read with longing. She stood at podiums in rooms full of scientists who had once overlooked her and commanded their attention with nothing but the strength of her ideas. Everything she had dreamed of was finally within reach. And Marcus found himself changing too. He visited the foundation more often than his corporate offices. He sat in on research meetings that had nothing to do with his bottom line. He traded gala invitations for quiet dinners with Zara where they debated marine policy over takeout containers and too much coffee. He laughed more than he had in years. Genuine laughter. Not the polished chuckle he deployed at business functions, but real joy. The kind he had forgotten existed. Their relationship evolved naturally. Friendship first, then something deeper. something neither of them dared to name. Professional meetings became longer than necessary. Coffee conversations extended into evenings. Late-night phone calls about research somehow turned into late-night phone calls about everything. Their fears, their dreams, their scars, the things they had never told anyone else. She saw past his wealth to the small-town boy who still felt like an outsider. He saw past her circumstances to the brilliant mind the world had tried to silence. They gave each other something neither had found anywhere else: permission to be fully themselves. But love does not ask permission. It grows whether you are ready or not, in the glances that lingered a moment too long, in the excuses to be near each other, in the way her name made him smile before he even answered the phone, in the way she found herself thinking about him at random moments throughout the day. They both felt it. They both fought it. It was too complicated, too risky. The world would never understand. But love does not care about complications, and eventually it demands to be acknowledged. But first they would have to survive what was coming, because the world was not ready to accept their story, and the obstacles ahead would test everything they had built. The tabloids came first: billionaire CEO dating former waitress, gold digger, or genuine love. Whitfield Foundation head suspiciously close to scholarship recipient. The headlines dripped with skepticism. Anonymous sources fed rumors to gossip columnists. Their private moments became public speculation. Everything they did was scrutinized and twisted. A dinner together became evidence of impropriety. A smile in a photograph became proof of manipulation. The narrative was already written. She was using him for his money. He was having a midlife crisis. It could not possibly be real. His social circle made their opinions known. Business partners pulled him aside at events. "Marcus, you need to think about how this looks. She is a nice girl, I am sure, but she is beneath you. What can she possibly offer someone like you?" The elite closed ranks against her. Invitations that used to include them both now came addressed only to him. Events she attended with him became exercises in enduring thinly veiled insults. She was tolerated, never welcomed. His board of directors called an emergency meeting. "Your personal life is affecting stock prices. Shareholders are concerned. This relationship is becoming a liability. We strongly recommend you reconsider." The pressure was relentless, and it came from her side too. Old friends from the neighborhood stopped returning her calls. When they did speak, the conversations were cold. "You think you are better than us now. You forgot where you came from. Sold yourself out for a rich man's attention." Her mother's concern kept her up at night. "Baby, are you sure about this? Men like him, they do not stay. I do not want to see you hurt. I have seen this before. Promise me you will be careful." Even Marcus's family weighed in. His brother confronted him at a family gathering. "You are risking everything for a woman you barely know. Think about the family legacy. Think about what our parents sacrificed. You are making us all look foolish." And then Victoria returned. She showed up at his office unannounced. Tears perfectly arranged. Apologies rehearsed to perfection. "I made a mistake, Marcus. I was scared. I was not ready for how intense things were. But I have changed. I know what I want now. I want you." She painted a picture of reconciliation, a return to what was familiar, a relationship the world expected and approved of. The controversy would disappear. The stock prices would stabilize. Everything would go back to normal. All he had to do was let Zara go. The temptation was not Victoria herself. He felt nothing when he looked at her now. The temptation was the easier path. No more fighting. No more defending. No more watching the woman he loved get attacked by people who did not know her. He could end the controversy with a single decision, but it would cost him everything that actually mattered. Zara saw the articles. She heard the whispers. She watched the toll it was taking on Marcus and on herself. And one evening she made a decision. She started packing her bags. When Marcus arrived at her apartment, she was almost finished. "What are you doing?" "I am leaving." "What?" "I will not be the reason you lose everything." She kept her back to him so he would not see her tears. "You deserve someone who fits in your world. Someone who will not cost you your reputation. Someone who will not make everything so hard." He crossed the room and turned her to face him. Her eyes were red. Her cheeks were wet, and his heart broke at the sight of her pain. "Do you not understand?" he said. "None of it matters without you. Marcus, I would burn the empire down before I would lose you." She shook her head. You do not mean that. I have never meant anything more in my life. He cupped her face in his hands. I spent 40 years building the wrong life. You showed me what the right one looks like. I am not choosing between you and the world. I am choosing you, period. The tears she had been holding back finally fell. He pulled her close and held her while she cried. And in that moment, everything else faded away. The headlines, the whispers, the pressure, none of it mattered, because they had each other, and that was enough. The research vessel cut through Caribbean waters as the sun melted into the horizon. Off the coast of the Bahamas, crystal blue fading to gold and pink, a perfect ending to a perfect day. This was Zara's first independent expedition. Her research, her team, her vision finally brought to life. Marcus had insisted on being there to see it, not as a funder, not as a billionaire, but as the man who loved her. They stood on the deck together. The crew had retired below. They were alone with the sky and the sea and the weight of everything unspoken between them. Zara broke the silence first. What are we doing, Marcus? The question had haunted them both. The feelings they had danced around. The future they had not dared to imagine. He turned to face her. I do not know, but I know I do not want to do it with anyone else. She studied him. That is not an answer. I need to know where I stand. The world is trying to tear us apart. Is this worth fighting for? Marcus exhaled. I stopped believing in love years ago. I thought that part of my life was over. People like me do not get fairy tales. We get transactions, arrangements, partnerships of convenience. He looked out at the water. And then you sat at my table. On the worst night of my life, when everyone else saw a failure, you saw a man who was breaking. You brought me your mother's recipe. You sat with me when it could have cost you everything. You saw me. He turned back to her. I was not waiting for someone to complete me. I was waiting for someone who reminded me I was already whole. You did that. You do that every day. Zara's breath caught. I have spent my whole life being underestimated, she said softly. Told I was not enough. That dreams like mine were not for people like me. She stepped closer. You did not save me, Marcus. You showed me I could save myself. And you believed in me when no one else did. He took her hands. I am terrified, he admitted. Of what? Of finally having something I cannot afford to lose. She smiled through tears. Good. Then, we are even. She lifted her hand to his face. I am not going anywhere. Neither am I. And under the Caribbean sky, with the sun disappearing into the ocean they both loved, she kissed him. Not for his money, not for his power, not for what he could give her. For the man who had let himself be seen, for the man who had chosen her when the world told him not to, for everything they had built together, and everything they would build from this moment forward. If this story has touched your heart, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to believe in love again. Subscribe to Mr. Andy Love Stories for more powerful narratives that remind us what matters most. And stay until the end, because the best is yet to come. 2 years later, the same rooftop restaurant where everything began had been completely transformed. The private corner table, where Marcus once sat alone, was now the center of an intimate celebration. White flowers everywhere, candles glowing softly, the Atlantic sparkling under Miami's velvet sky. But this time, there was no empty chair. This time there was no devastating text message. This time everything Marcus had once hoped for was finally coming true, just not in the way he expected, because the woman walking toward him was not the one he had planned to propose to all those years ago. She was so much more. Zara moved through the small gathering like she was gliding on air. Her gown sparkled like the ocean she had dedicated her life to protecting. Her smile outshone the stars above, and her eyes held the same warmth that had stopped him cold on the worst night of his life. The guest list was small. Close friends, family who had finally come around, her uncle the chef who had made her mother's recipe that fateful night, scientists from the foundation, people who had watched their love story unfold and knew how rare and real it was. There were no whispers this time, no judgment, no skepticism, just silence, reverent, awed, because everyone there knew what they were witnessing. Not just a wedding, but proof that the most unexpected beginnings can lead to the most beautiful endings. Proof that love does not require permission from society. Proof that kindness is never too small to matter. As Zara reached him, Marcus took her hands. His voice cracked slightly when he spoke. I was abandoned on a night I thought would change my life. He smiled. I was right. It did. Just not the way I expected. Zara laughed through tears. You tipped me 40% that night. Best investment I ever made. Gentle laughter rippled through the crowd. But Marcus continued. I spent 40 years building something the world would admire. A shipping empire. A fortune. A reputation. But I never understood what I was building it for. He paused. Until you sat at my table and reminded me that success means nothing without kindness. Zara squeezed his hands. It was her turn. I used to think my dreams were too big for someone like me. Too ambitious. Too unrealistic. I spent years being told no, being overlooked, being dismissed. She looked into his eyes. You did not rescue me. Let me be very clear about that. Laughter again. You gave me the resources to rescue myself. And then you stood beside me while I did. She smiled. You showed me that dreams are not stupid, even when the world says they are impossible. I promise to remind you of that every day, for the rest of our lives. He leaned his forehead against hers. I love you. I know, she whispered. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for finally letting me. And under the same Miami sky where everything began, where heartbreak had made room for something better, where a canceled date had opened the door to a miracle, they sealed their commitment with a kiss. The reception was everything their journey had been. Unconventional, joyful, full of meaning. They danced to music that meant something to them. They ate food that reminded them of home. They laughed with people who had supported them through the hardest moments. And when the night grew late and the crowd thinned out, they stood at the railing looking out at the ocean, side by side, together, the same view from the worst night of his life, now the backdrop of the best night. The foundation they built together had grown beyond anything either imagined. Marine research changing global policy. Scholarship funds opening doors for young scientists from disadvantaged backgrounds. Mentorship programs for women of color in STEM. A legacy measured not in dollars, but in lives changed. The tabloids that once attacked them now celebrated them. Power couple changing the world. Love story proves fairy tales are real. Whitfield Foundation named most impactful nonprofit of the decade. The narrative had changed because they changed it by refusing to give up, by choosing each other every single day, by proving that love built on kindness and respect can survive anything the world throws at it. Every time someone asked how they met, they told the same story. A canceled date, a heartbroken billionaire, and a waitress who offered kindness when he needed it most. Some people called it luck. Some people called it fate. They called it a choice, because miracles are not always written in the stars. Sometimes they are written in small moments, in soft words, in the decision to see someone's humanity when the rest of the world only sees their failure. That is the miracle. Not the money, not the transformation, the kindness, the connection, the choice to see and be seen. Love does not always arrive in grand gestures. Sometimes it sits down at your table when you are at your lowest, and reminds you that you are worth staying for. That is how two strangers became forever. And that is how a single act of kindness became the greatest love story either of them ever knew. If this story moved you, do not leave without liking, commenting, and subscribing. Share this video with someone who needs to believe that better days are coming. Because they are. They always are. Sometimes we just need to be patient enough to let them arrive, and brave enough to recognize them when they do. I am Andy, and this has been Mr. Andy Love Stories. Until next time, believe in love.